because you have an awesome voice and delicious time. I release control and surrender to the flow of love that surrounds me. I release control and surrender to the flow of love that surrounds me.
Why is it both of the words today?
Because today's a new day. We can do whatever we want on any day. Any day. Everything is possible. Total as
All right, what's shaking? It's Mark Cordeau and Golden Mike Podcast. A very short, simple Golden Mike Podcast. I do have a guest I'm going to introduce, but I just wanted to start out with a real quick introduction to why I'm doing this piece. It's about the power of neutrality today that we're going to be talking about. But how do you unsee something you just witnessed? This week I saw something on the internet that I deemed to be very sad. I saw a terribly wounded child confront another terribly wounded child. Neither had much of a semblance of personal power. So one child tried to exert his power and put the weight of the multiverse on the other child's throat. And I saw that other child expire his last breath into the cosmos, and I can't unsee it. Now I've tried to get someone to help me unsee, but it seems like everyone had already seen it, and many other terribly wounded inner children started playing by the rules of radicals, which is quite sensible when a perceived stigmatized, tired have-not has no more fucks to give. I mean, I certainly can relate to being relegated to the moniker of have-not in my life, but hey, I'm surrounded by more haves than have-nots. Like anyone who is reading this, listening to this, or watching this, whether you have thin or thick skin, I used almost all of my halves to locate someone who could help me unsee what I saw. And I found on the same internet 3 people who hadn't seen the atrocity. They're all the way in Costa Rica. 2 of them, children in the video, if you saw it, Cristiano and Indy. Both of them vibrant, vulnerable, powerful, operating as one. The other one is my friend Sarah, who recorded the video. I intercepted her. I thankfully intercepted her before she had access to any means of viewing what I was trying to unsee. And I asked her to help me with my dilemma. So I skirted around the images and asked her to give me some advice around my growing need to be part of the haves versus have-nots movement. Um, or to just play my pithy, empowered to be enlightened card. I'm glad I intercepted her before the unseeable crawled to some of the more remote areas of Costa Rica. Um, Sarah reminded me of the power of neutrality and also taught me a song that soothed the terribly wounded inner child in me. Um, I release control and surrender to the flow of love that surrounds me. And while we talk for 2 hours, I wanted to share this podcast, this video, for anyone feeling the hellaciousness of being in the middle of evolutionary friction. Thank you, Sarah, Cristiano, and Indy. And with that said, let's go and listen to Sarah's interview.
So the words that they were singing on this video
Okay.
are I release control. I release control and surrender to the flow of love that surrounds me.
I'm really happy that I got to see the image of your son and your friend before I saw. I had a few days before I'd seen that, because that image is really a totem for me to restore.
So, if evolution requires a little friction, at least in this realm, at least in the third dimensional reality that I'm used to, evolution requires friction. I'm open to other possibilities. Just throwing that out there. But that friction, while one could say that that friction is evil, or that friction is diabolical, or that friction is the unconscious ego, ultimately that friction also comes from God, divinity, source, something. So, so I don't necessarily think that that's where we get into like why I try to stay in a place of neutrality instead of getting like freaked the fuck out. Is that there really is no good nor bad. I mean, that's a really privileged thing to say. However, there is not necessarily a good or bad. There's because everything comes from the same source. But there is maybe, at least in this third dimensional reality, a friction that's necessary for evolutionary growth. I personally, and you have too, have experienced a shit ton of friction in my personal life, like a lot of friction. And I know a lot of people have experienced a lot of friction. My friction is not necessarily any greater than anybody else's friction, but it has, for me, led to a lot of growth, a lot of personal growth. I feel like I have created a reality that is beyond anything I could have dreamed of in previous lifetimes, previous iterations of this life. So I'm grateful for that friction. So I think collectively humans are going through a period of intense friction, and it's hellacious to be in the middle of it. I think one key, if I were to name a key, is just total openness to all possibility. So I can believe and disbelieve at the same time, because I'm just open to all the possibilities. And so that allows you, that basically gives permission to I don't know, your higher self, divinity, whatever, to come in if you are open to all the possibilities. If you're saying like, versus like, no, there's no journal article about channeling, so I can't possibly believe that. Just being like, well, what if it is true? What if it's possible that there is this, this beautiful, loving cosmic force that could move through me for the betterment of humanity and the planet? Well, that would be neat. I'm just going to like act as if that's true for a hot minute and see what happens.
But yeah, there's things that can't be unseen. That's all I got to say.
I'm curious because I want to know what my peeps are going through. Like, I'm just curious. Like, that's part of, like, that's like I said earlier on in the conversation. Like, I kind of keep my my eyes on it in as much of a sort of non-attached way. I keep my eyes on things so that I can process it and be available for whatever processing anyone else needs to do around whatever's happening in the world. And also, I think that being able to stand and look at darkness and remain neutral and transmute it is an important skill to have.
Dude, that is so solid.
So, what do you think one can? What can one do with that skill?
Anything. Fucking. Yeah.
You're bulletproof.
Yeah.